First question is about if you should avoid to see those images of violence against those animals, the cruelty, the killing that they're going, all the situation that they're going through, and is it something that we should look at, or is it something that we should avoid for any reason?
Well, in general, when we are trying to invoke genuine compassion, then we have to recognize what it is that we're feeling compassionate about. And since often our minds are in denial about what is actually happening in the world, not only towards other human beings, but also towards animals, then I think it's a very good thing for people to be woken up, to recognize that right now, these things, these atrocities towards animals, especially with the farming of animals for the meat industry, is really a very terrible thing, which is every day affecting millions of sentient beings, and especially as Buddhists who believe that all sentient beings have Buddha nature, and that all sentient beings wish for well-being and wish to avoid suffering. The fact that we allow and condone this industry which lives off causing suffering and torture and death to so many millions of sentient beings should be known and recognized and faced up to.
Why many people who love animals don't want to see those images of cruelty against the animals? Is it some kind of fear, avoidance, or is it due to their love to those beings?
I think a lot of it is due to a dislike of feeling uncomfortable. And also, I mean, I know for myself that it would be one of my reactions, you know. I mean, you see this horror, it's not something like a horror movie, which is just, made up in order to frighten you. This is something which is real, this is true, this is happening right now to so many beings. And that makes people feel, very, very painful inside. And so they don't want to think about that, because not only when you're looking at the images, but later on those images will replay. And then you have to make a decision what you're going to do about that. It's not enough just to have compassion, but also then to think, well, am I in any way also contributing to this problem? For example, by buying the very product which is being shown as the cause of all this torture and torment. So, a lot of people don't want to look and face that. You go to a supermarket, you buy your meat, it's all nicely packaged. You don't want to think about how it got to be that way, and that actually is a feeling frightened and tormented being, which you're now about to enjoy and say, oh, how delicious.
Do we human beings have any responsibility as an individual in working for releasing the pain of those animals who are going through all those kinds of suffering due man-made problems?
Well, I mean, obviously the first action which we should take when we appreciate the scale on which all these innocent beings are being, it's not just that they are killed, but the conditions in which they live up until the time when they finally die. Obviously, the first thing is not to condone that industry by not, plugging into it by buying the product. I mean, if we eat meat, we cannot say we're sorry for the animals who died, because obviously we're not sorry enough, because our satisfaction in eating meat is more important to us than the incredible suffering which all these beings have gone through in order to put that meal onto our plate. So even if we did nothing else, if people who really felt that stopped buying these products, then obviously if there was enough of them, then that would cut back on the industry. But as long as we buy it, there is going to be a source for that buying. As in any place where there are a lot of people buying meat, there are going to be butchers.
And, what are the solutions to reduce the abuse, torture, killing of those animals of so many animals on the planet who are suffering, in fact, found due to human desires?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is like what you are trying to do, which is to allow, through your documentaries, to show people that this is what is happening. There is a group of young Tibetans who have, again, also these quite horrific stories of how, these animal factories. And they go around the Tibetan camps showing that. And that was a major cause of many Tibetans taking vows not to eat meat or to eat much less meat because they saw it, right? And this is very important. It's not just something that you close off your mind against. Once you see it, you can't pretend anymore. And so this is very, very important. And articles. And I feel also that, in the Tibetan tradition at least, that important Tibetan or Buddhist teachers speak out about this. And the problem is always that, people follow the conduct of their teachers. So if their teachers are meat-eating, then the disciples are usually meat-eating. And if the Lama is a vegetarian or a vegan, then so will be the students. Because, people tend to follow blindly whatever their teacher's doing. So sometimes that's to the good, and maybe sometimes that's not so to the good. It might be okay for the Lama. It's not necessarily true, that conduct, for the students. So therefore, to my mind, the Lamas themselves should take responsibility. Like, for example, His Holiness Karmapa and others, and Gyalwang Drukpa. Their students are mostly at least vegetarian because the Lamas are, and speak out against meat eating. And since they speak out against it and they themselves do not indulge in it, they are truthfully saying, don't do this, by not doing it themselves, then, it's like throwing a stone in a lake, the ripples spread. But if the Lamas themselves are, they don't, I don't know. I don't understand why they, after all these years, they're still eating meat when they must surely be aware of the suffering it's causing for so many beings.
Is there such a thing that we can call a humane method of slaughtering?
Well, I'm sure that there are better ways of doing it than the ways that... The point is that people who run these, even in India, people who are into slaughtering animals, they become so cut off from their feelings as far as animals are concerned that they really become like, the demons in hell. And they don't care. And even though they see the terror of the animals, they just shut off all their feelings, and so, therefore they tend to slaughter them in a way which they think will make the meat more tender and delicious later on. They don't care about what the suffering of the animals. Of course, there must be more humane ways of killing an animal than that, although, killing an animal in any case is not a good thing. Especially when you're dealing with thousands upon thousands every day, in any one place, then that whole energy is terrifying to a being who knows that they're going to go through that themselves. And of course also the conditions in which these animals are brought up. If traditionally, the animals were out in the pasture, they had a good life, they, were eating natural foods like grass and hay, and they They had a pleasant life. Then at a certain point they were slaughtered, which was unfortunate, but at least they'd had a nice life up to then. But nowadays, of course, with these factories, I mean, their whole life is a hell realm. And at the end of it, probably in a way, death was a release from such a ghastly existence in which they suffered every moment of their lives. So, yeah, put them back into the fields again.